Welcome to another edition of Living with Purpose. Today I have an extraordinary human being, Dan Terry, who's basically lived his life full of purpose in every single thing that he has done. He has been the captain of multiple industries, doing innovative work where it has actually brought benefits to the underserved community around the world. Dan has also been an advisor to the University of Washington Bothell campus at the business school and at the STEM school. Has just been this, he and his wife, Cindy, have just been this amazing individuals that have contributed so much to our region. So I am so thrilled that I get the opportunity to talk to Dan and welcome Dan to the podcast, Living with Purpose.
Thank you, Akhtar. It is my distinct pleasure to be here.
So, Dan, talk about your journey. Start off with where you were born, the family you were born in, some interesting experiences that you had in your childhood that has put you onto this path of living a life of purpose.
Well, I was born to a large family. I'm the son of a prairie preacher, and I was born at the southern gate of the poorest region in the hemisphere, which is the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. I was born in Kadoka, South Dakota, which literally means hole in the wall. My father had 6 churches to feed his 8 children, and when I was about 12, he moved to California, to a church in California, and decided that he needed to go back to university and got his doctorate of theology, his PhD. And with that, he started a company to help people in the ministry out of the ministry, because the ministry is populated by people who want to help. And in fact, they get caught up in politics of churches. And he was very successful at that. He grew into the secular world and became the second largest outplacement consulting firm in North America. So I had an interesting background where small prairie ethics grew into the fast pace of Los Angeles School of Business, where I put myself through first year's college in the aerospace industry, which is very fast-paced. In high school, I found that I did very well, very easily, really didn't have to struggle. And early in high school, they sent me in the afternoons off to the local community college, running start before running start. And I was doing pre-med and math and sports, and went off to a college in Idaho that in 1976 cost more than Harvard. And I took mathematics, philosophy, and sociology, and found that I didn't have a goal like my brother, who we knew he was going to be a doctor. My sisters who all went into academia. And I just wanted to learn. There's a book, I believe it's by John Hershey, that was called The Brainchild. And it was about force feeding young children with information and knowledge, like making goose weather potty, shoving information down their throats. And rather than be appalled, I was fascinated. I just wanted to learn. And in college, sophomore year, I was the youngest member of the Idaho State Penitentiary Parole Board. I started a business in college to fund our fraternity. I just took everything that fascinated me. And because of that, when I left that university and went out into Cal State system, also newly married and working full-time in the aerospace industry, full load at school, taking other things like Japanese. I found that I just had it was a drive. I just had to continue learning. So after 4 years of university, I didn't have an AA. Spelled out. I don't have any degree, which is amusing because I sit on education boards and engineering boards, and I am self-taught in everything. I got a degree in a cocktail party conversation. When I talk about just about anything. So I took a job in Seattle with my new wife, who was from here, because I got a full ride scholarship to the University of Washington in my fifth year. I never went because in the summer I did really well on the job and found kind of an aspect in the metals industry that fascinated me. And after a year, I left to join a gentleman as a partner in a rep firm. And a rep firm is like an agent for factories. And I was very successful for about 4 years. It was commodity. And I found myself to be very unhappy. Looking at bridge abutments, unhappy. I deeply unfulfilled. And I went to my partner and I made a deal with him and we separated. And I took all of the lines, we call a factory, representing a factory line. And I took the lines that were difficult, precision, miniature. I called them esoteric manufacturing options. And I took those and I never looked back. I couldn't be happier. That was part and parcel of failure of that marriage. Turns out money is important to some people. And I went off to be useful. At the dinner table, when I was in high school, because of my father's work in outplacement, our dinner table conversations were the California Occupational Placement Score tests, Myers-Briggs, Mensa Design Perception Profile test. But this is what we did around the dinner table. And I took my tests, and even at 16, I was a general problem solver. And that is, even at near 70 now, that's what I am. So I dig into problems with kind of a new mind philosophy. I don't go to the textbooks. I go to the fathers. I go to Tesla or Schauberger or Faraday, and I read their works rather than college textbook interpretation. And I find that this is it gets me up at 5 in the morning. I wake up 5 in the morning because I like my life, and I can't wait to start again. So my rep firm turned into a brokerage firm. I started buying and selling and helping our customers that way. We found ourselves to be angel investors in manufacturing because we would help people who needed help. And we crossed over into a number of different areas of manufacturing that nobody wanted to take responsibility when a third of it was this and 2/3 of it is other stuff. So we would take responsibility for everything. And these philosophies of the dinner table, which was you are blessed to be a blessing, and a blessing unused is a curse. So what we learned young was learn what gifts you have been given. Because
I just want to stop. I think this is such an important message, right? So I want you to just repeat it for our listeners.
So our philosophy at its core is identify your gifts. You call them strengths, but we call them blessings. And if I have experiences, I spoke Japanese and I knew the grinding industry and I had an engineering background. So the more of those gifts that I can combine, the more unique I am in the world in that space. And my gifts I found are problem solving, analytical thinking, identifying variables, and solving for control of variables. So I just came to that naturally. If I had been in a different industry, those gifts would have shown up in a different way. But I happen to be in the manufacturing space. And I found a way to use my gifts in the manufacturing space. So then what you have to do is you have to be used. And when people say, I feel so used, we always chuckle and we say, lucky you. Because happiness comes from identifying your gifts and then having those gifts used in the world. So when I was making a bunch of money in the commodities industry, I was unhappy because I wasn't used. I was playing games trying to make it interesting. But all of a sudden, when it requires analyzing 16 different ways of making something, I'm a happy cop because I'm gonna find the solution for you, for your budget, for your realistic growth, for all of these different things. So that aligns then my gifts with my actions in business. And then we go to the next stage, which is we don't focus on our benefit. We never have. We focus on if I had a buyer, how do I help this buyer do better in their job and raise them up in their career? And what that does for us over the years and decades is those people took us with them. And as we built our business, we eventually eschewed anything easy. And we used to language, if somebody else can do this, you should talk to them. We just do the impossible.
Do the impossible.
Yeah.
Use your gifts to do the impossible. That's such a valuable lesson for everybody.
But there is a freedom and a blessing in doing the impossible. And we've done this many times. Nobody else has done it. So if nobody else has done it, I'm not dumber than anyone else. Leave freedom to change that problem, right? So we worked on interesting things like the launch of Pinty and Greenville. They sought us out and they said that, we should talk to you. We have this design and nobody will quote it. And so we took that on and figured out how to change a 135-year-old aluminum extrusion industry. And that is still the baseline cooling technology for all electronics involved. After doing that for 10 years and other things, we were involved in the laser business and exercise business and securities business and like physical security. Our little brokerage company turned into a product development company, and we started building companies and spinning them out. So we would do, maybe a company every 3 years or exit a company every 3 years on top of the other stuff that we were doing. And at age 60, at 55, it seemed like, maybe I should go find a home on the edge of the water somewhere. And we were thinking about that when we learned about this small molecule called hypochlorous acid. or HOCl. And I'd had two particular experiences in my life. One was my father, when I was 32, boiled to death in a hot tub.
Huh.
He was in a hot tub that failed, and a boiling hot tub looks like a hot tub that's working. The steam and bubble. There were failures in the system that caused it to go way above the boiling temperature. Salt fixed part. So I was with him for 10 days in the burn hospital with all the siblings, and we watched the medieval medicine that passes for burn care in the world today. And it is truly medieval. And I have this imprinted vividly in my brain. And then fast forward back to 2002, I'm in China doing work for Intel, and I got really sick on that trip, multiple times. And get out of the country, get back to Seattle. I go get a prescription. I'm in a shopping mall 50 hours from being in China when they shut the doors to China, and it's SARS. And the patient zero at SARS was 2 miles from where I was staying at that hospital. So now I've got an up close and personal viewpoint of how pandemics spread. And so forward, I'm reading about this molecule. I go into PubMed, I'm reading articles, and here are all these articles about burn care and its phenomenal applications in burns and wounds. And there are dozens and dozens of published papers on how it's effective against near any pathogen. And I looked at this and I said that this is so plausible. This molecule does all these things. And I recall reading these papers, my personal experiences, and I went to my wife. I said, I think I know how to solve this problem. And my wife and I, shoulder to shoulder with all these businesses, I'm on number 13 right now, shoulder to shoulder. And she goes, well, you know what that means. The Buddhist philosophy that if you are aware of a thing, that, you're in line of responsibility. And we said, well, we have to do it. So we took all of our retirement and self-funded this venture into hydrochloric acid. And when I solve a problem, I have criteria. It has to be inexpensive. It has to be consistent. It has to be available to everybody anytime. And what I did was I spent 17 hours a day, 7 days a week for 7 months to kind of crack the stability covenant. We gave away 10,000 bottles, started a charity, a foundation before we started the company. I still had the other companies funding on it. And we just started giving product away. And in the meantime, I'm also getting feedback. I've got a feedback loop there so I can fine tune what it is that I'm making. And then I created a machine. The world needed a machine that could be deployed anywhere, to any village in the world. And I needed any matriarch of any village to be able to push a button and make this molecule exactly the same way I make it. And we called that the WISH machine, the World HOCl Initiative in Sustainable Health. And that WISH machine, and how it's produced today, one machine can produce 13.5 million people worth of product per month. And we harness those together in a neural network system with machine learning so that every machine makes every other machine smarter. And we set off to build that company. It has been 15 years. That is now exited to a global CPG, process of exit. And that fit our original goal. When we started that company, we put up the Margaret Mead quote in our lobby that says, don't think that a small group of dedicated people can't change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's when there were 5 of us And we sat around, we said, we're going to change the world. Why not? But, tell me I can't. Nobody's done that, stabilized that molecule. Nobody had scaled it. So we're not dumber than anyone else. And with that permission and the ability to self-fund it, and that's what that molecule needed. I think it found us because it needed somebody who could solve the problem with new manufacturing and scaling and didn't care about profitability in the beginning. So you can't patent a molecule. So pharma doesn't do it because they can't patent a molecule. And we didn't care. We were just trying to get it in the hands of people who needed it. So that's out in the world today, and, there are high-speed lines turning out, truckloads and hours worth of product, and it's doing really well. We don't work there anymore. So,
Dan, just explain to our listeners what that product is and how useful it is.
That's fascinating. In every single cell in your body, in 1 trillion cells in your body, you're constantly making, in your white blood cells, hypochlorous acid. Your white blood cells are not the magic that you think it is. Your white blood cells are a factory, the little white van that brings HOCl to the scene of the crime. It's a factory in a process called phagocytosis that makes hypochlorous acid. This molecule is the first responder, the first line of defense in anything that goes wrong with you. So the thing that makes us old and the thing that makes us hurt, inflammation, it attacks inflammation. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's also an anti-infective. It kills everything. And early in my career, I reached out to the BSL-4 lab at NIH because I needed somebody that had prions. Prions are the end of all life on Earth that nobody has heard of. They're 100% fatal, and they are contagious. And we don't tie these things together like mad cow and chronic wasting with imminent death of life on Earth because it has a 30 to 40-year gestation. So I went to NIH, and they tried it, and they came back, and the top prion scientists in the world said to me, what is this stuff? I said, it works, doesn't it? So my goal with Briotech and with HOCl, hypochlorous acid, as with anything else I do, is you need purity. You need to make this the way nature makes it. I am at my core a biomimicrist. I look to nature to find my solutions. And nature doesn't make a thing that's half bleak. And that's what hypochlorous acid had been for its 130-year history. First written about in British Journal of Medicine in 1917 as a cure for wound healing in World War I. So it's been around for a long, long time. It wasn't respected. So we saw this as God's molecule, and we said, respect the molecule. And that's how we treated it. And it was our charge to get it out into the world. So once again, the way we get through these things, because life happens, you get run over by a Mack truck, the bank tries to take your house, real story, and all of that doesn't matter because you're doing something that's bigger than you. We never did this for us. We did this for the world. And true story, we'd never missed a payment on our mortgage, but the bank tried to take our house because construction loans were failing and they were looking for assets, and they pulled that loan. And while they red-carded our home, and we had to move out and save it to try to, play that long game with the bank, we got a 2-page tear-stained letter about what this molecule did for somebody. And we used to get those letters on a regular basis. And we know that we have been privileged to be in the stream of impacting tens of thousands of lives. So I don't get to complain that I have to work late or that something is hard. Because you do something that's bigger than you. So we called that this grand dream. We looked at our own gap analysis of the people that we needed. We literally defined those skills and those people, and we called them the universe, and they showed up. And we had a team as a little tiny company that could have run $1 billion organization. And I'm not exaggerating. And it was because everybody wanted in on the ride.
Yeah.
And so the molecule is natural. What I had to do was figure out how to split H2O and NaCl into, 4 components and recombine them into what nature makes in your molecules. And in fact, NIH did one presentation where they said that the HOCl you make in your own brain is as good as Brio. The company's called Biotech, and Brio is homage to verb and energy that kind of imparts this molecule. So we have passed that child on. That child of ours has graduated into the world, and somebody else, it is their charge now to take it into all the countries of the world, and we wish them well. So, we started another. So I'm now working in a distillation process for developing nations so that they can collect and monetize food waste and agricultural waste and create jobs by turning a system like built into free fuel ethanol E100. It's a push button distillation system that makes E100. And so I got that in my garage right now and running trials.
And you have a big garage.
I have a big garage, yeah.
I have seen that. So, thank you very much for sharing. And I would love to kind of get a little bit more on why you see purpose being so important in everything you do and why all of us should be living a life of purpose.
It's part of my belief system. My belief system is if you will, allow me, that we're kind of waiting in line to come down to earth. And we pick our parents for the lessons that we need to learn, maybe they need to learn. So we have this short period of life here on earth. And what do we do with it? And it isn't about amassing temporal or temporary wealth. Who really gives a crap at the end of the day after you've got enough for your needs? So what we do is we focus on what use we can be. And again, I focused on early on kind of what my skill sets were. So how do I use my skill set? And I chose manufacturing. That's the path I chose. So I apply those skills in the path I chose, and I look for challenges. And the universe is funny, right? Whatever we focus on seems to come our way. And I look for things that are important, that work for the world, that bring equity, that bring health or create jobs. And that's where I focus my energy. I think that's important, and it's fun. So my family, we all work together. Our children are in the business. My wife and I are shoulder to shoulder. And we go charge out into the world together. And it's not a choice. I have to do this. I just have to.
One of the things that I talk about is that purpose is not a choice, nor is it a luxury. It is really you. And if you show up in the way with your gifts and your dedication and commitment, then you are really living a life of purpose. Then, as we end, share your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you want our listeners to follow or emulate.
Life can be hard, and self-employment can be harder. So if you are going to make it through, you have to be working for something bigger than yourself. If you don't have any skill and you don't know what that is, go work in a soup kitchen. Go join a charity. Do something bigger than you, and your life will light up. Be bigger than yourself.
Just such a wonderful way to end, right? That do something bigger than yourself. Live a life of purpose. Purpose is that renewable source of energy that continues to drive humanity forward. Dan, thank you so very much for being part of the podcast. And I'm quite sure our listeners are going to be enamored by what you have done and what you've achieved. And hopefully a few will emulate your journey, your life of purpose. Thank you so very much for being part of this podcast.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Lynn.